Look at the screen.
Okay.
There you go. There you go.
That is okay.
Yeah, we got him.
It's okay.
Okay.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Julius Bamturaki, Department of Literature and Film Studies, Faculty of Arts and Humanities, Kyambogo University. I'm here to introduce, first of all, to welcome you to this presentation entitled Digital Publishing for Academic Scholars, and my responsibility is to introduce the presenter for the session. Dr. Richard Scott Knox, aka Court, is a professor of medieval literature at Troy University, Alabama, United States of America, and the director of the AI Forward Initiative, an expert in digital humanities and e-publishing. He has been awarded grants focusing on AI integration in the humanities education. Dr. Knox leads AI education initiatives, mentors AI-focused interns, and delivers keynote presentations on AI's impact in humanities and education. His work bridges traditional literary scholarship with cutting-edge artificial intelligence application in academic settings. Dr. Knox is currently a Fulbright Program Visiting Professor in the Department of Literature and Film Studies, Faculty of Arts and Humanities, Kyambogo University. In addition to teaching, which he's already doing very well, he will be conducting a research on the topic Pre-Modern Ghanaian Stories from Orature to Digital Publishing in Medieval Literature. Today's Digital Publishing for Academic Scholars is the second of the three staff course presentations he will deliver while here with us at Kyambogo University. Ladies and gentlemen, join me to welcome today's presenters, Professor Richard Scott, aka Okot, and Jamie Knox. Thank you so much.
What's that? He's not on. He's not on yet. But when he gets on, I'll do a little introduction for him. Okay, let me share the screen here, so you don't have to look at me the whole time. Let's share the proper screen. Okay, that should be this one. Okay. All right. So, if you're watching this online after the fact, we're going to do another version of this, which is aimed less at staff and more at students and the general public. So we'll end up talking a lot today about some of the more technical and academic issues. Later on, we'll be joined by Michael McNamara, who's the systems architect for Witan Publishing, the little publishing company I'm going to talk about a little bit. And so he'll be able to answer some of those questions. All right, so I'm going to have to keep moving here. All right, so first, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that, as Mr. Bamturaki said, I'm here as a Fulbright scholar, and so this talk is part of the Fulbright project that I was brought here to do, and so this is sponsored by Fulbright. There are lots of programs besides the ones I'm on, and so we have some staff members here. I know that the dean of this faculty is very interested in her faculty pursuing Fulbrights. There are also student opportunities, other kinds of opportunities, so if you're interested, let me know, and I'll give you all the information I can. Hey, I know that guy. And of course, I'm here, I'm the director of the AI Forward Initiative, and I'm here at Kyambogo University, here at the Faculty of Arts and Humanities. I really want to thank the Faculty of Arts and Humanities, in particular, Department of Literature and Film Studies, for how welcoming you've been. We've been here almost 3 months at this point. It seems like we just got here yesterday, but it's been really, really, really wonderful. And importantly, for the talk today, it says I'm the founder, I'm one of the founders, and academic editor of Witan Publishing. Witan, for those who want to know, is an Old English word meaning the council or a gathering of wise people. And the idea meaning that the writers who we have are the gathering of the wise people. So let me tell you a little bit about our little publishing company. We were founded in February of 2011, and we do peer-reviewed medieval scholarship ebooks. And so this makes us the oldest publisher of medieval ebooks, medieval scholarly ebooks, I guess, in the world, in history. Ebooks haven't been around that long, so I guess in history. We're definitely the oldest. And when we first went to academic conferences, we had to explain to people even what ebooks were. It was that early on. And so we focus on that. And the important thing for us to understand here is that we built this on a shoestring budget. Very, very little money. It's by scholars for scholars. We don't make a lot of money, and it doesn't cost us a lot of money. And so it's a way of promoting scholarship. And that, for academics, is, I think, pretty important. So, all right, so I'm going to cover these topics. We're going to talk about what digital publishing is and is not, because there's often confusion. I want to talk about the Ugandan academic publishing context. To be frank, my knowledge of this is almost entirely something I've come to understand lately. So take what I have to say with a grain of salt. I'll have some numbers for you that might not be exactly accurate or might be a little bit old. I don't think they are. I double checked as much as I could. And we're going to talk about the benefits of digital publishing for academic works. And also we're going to talk about some of the limitations and some cautions. By the way, in a couple weeks when I do this one for students in general public, we're going to spend a lot of time on the cautions so that they don't get themselves in trouble. And most importantly, where to start. How can a school like Kyambogo begin to get into this realm of digital publishing? Because you can. All right, so let's talk about what it is. It's the electronic distribution of peer-reviewed academic work, but not all electronic is what we would call digital publishing. So there's ebooks, online journals, and open access repositories. So for example, the research I'm doing here, I hope to publish in open access repositories. This is not the same, and this is what confuses people, this is not the same as posting to as a PDF or a website. That's a different thing. Now, I know that reading PDFs is a very popular way of sharing documents here in Uganda. And nothing wrong with PDFs. That's just a different thing than what we're talking about here today. Really what a PDF is, it's not only this, but mostly what it is it's an image of something that's published in a different way. And of course, posting something to a website is a different thing also. Definitely not the same thing as social media or blogging. A lot of e-publishers, digital publishers, do have a strong social media or blogging presence, but that's a different thing than what we're talking about today. So, getting on WhatsApp and putting something on there is not the same thing as this. And so really, the goal is real scholarship. There's a lot of stuff out there that's not real scholarship, that's floating around on the internet. And so real scholarship that reaches real readers, not bots, not fake, not fake numbers run up, at real speed. And we're going to talk a little about what is speedy and what is not speedy with digital publishing. All right. Last year, digital publishing market was $257 billion. Most of that was my company. No, I'm just kidding. If that is an ocean, my company is maybe 1 drop or 2 if we're lucky some years. But yes, but it's big. It's a big business and it's growing quickly. Interestingly enough, I'm not going to get into this too much, but there was a lot of concern in the early days that e-publishing was going to cannibalize traditional cardboard and paper publishing. And weirdly, it has, in fact, tended to promote it. The people who buy ebooks tend to also buy a lot of cardboard and paper books, and actually it ends up promoting all reading, interestingly enough. I'm not really sure why that is. I have my own ideas, but that's not really what we're here to talk about. Academic and scientific publishers have been shifting to digital-first publication. A lot of the people in my field of medieval scholarship who are publishing now, they got into it after the fact. They were already doing traditional cardboard and paper print publishing, and they got into it after a while. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but open access models have been expanding worldwide. There's been a real push over the last 5 years or so, I'd say. It's a little older than that, but there's been a real push among a lot of academics. So why have academic and scientific publishers shifted? Because it's expensive to publish traditionally for things that aren't going to have a lot of readers. So for example, every year in the medieval scholarly world, 3,000 medievalists gather at the big medieval congress in Kalamazoo, Michigan. The best guess is there's about 6,000, that's about half, so about double that number in the world. Well, 6,000 readers, even if you could sell a book to every one of those, that actually is still not a lot for a book, right? And we're talking literary scholars, archaeologists, musicologists, religious studies. So in point of fact, if you're doing anything that's really cutting edge in the academic and scientific world, you're probably looking at maybe 300 potential readers. And it costs a lot of money to print a book. And so that's why digital first has become a much more cost-effective way and also a way of spreading the kind of intellectual capital around a little bit more. And so the old model is expensive. It replaced manuscripts, handwriting, or oral literature, right? And as such, it's cheaper than those. However, it's still more expensive than digital. It's slow and it's restricted, and it's also under a lot of pressure. So in my country, physical bookstores have been disappearing. Physical bookstores have been disappearing. When I came to Uganda, I was told, hey, I asked for certain books, and I was told and Ngume went with me to one. They said, well, Aristoc has got a chain of stores, and you can go to these. What I've learned is that they've almost all closed down. There's only 2 remaining, I think, in that chain. There's not that many bookstores here, and that's not just here. Around the world, the economics of cardboard and paper, selling cardboard and paper books are difficult for these companies to continue. All right. So let's talk about academic stuff. The National Council on Higher Education, National Commission, NCH, Council, yeah. They mandated, they want to regulate quality and promote research dissemination. Right? That is central, right? Which is good, because that's what I'm going to be talking about today. As far as I could find, Uganda has only 15 journals that are indexed on African journals online. So Uganda has only 15. So that's not a lot considering the population here. Kenya's got 96. Nigeria is a real leader with 353. South Africa has 115. If you go and you count and you find different numbers, those numbers might be a little bit off. Now, they do exist here. You know, electronic journals do exist. So, Makerere University Press Portal, they have the Higher Education Review, and Kyambogo apparently has Educame, which I have not actually looked at. Has anyone looked at that here? Yeah, I'm actually not super familiar with it. I've heard it mentioned by people, and then when I started researching, I still haven't I haven't looked at it yet. Which is not because it's obscure, just I didn't have an opportunity to look for it. So that shouldn't, for all I know, it's quite visible. So this is an issue of real national concern, I think. The NCHE has publicly noted that most universities are not conducting meaningful research. And there are lots of barriers, so I don't want to pretend, you know, access is often a barrier, you know, there are often bureaucratic barriers, financial barriers. You know, in my university, if you're teaching, if you're in the classroom, you know, 24 hours a week, and then grading, marking papers another 20 hours a week, the time left for research is little. So I don't want to pretend that the whole problem, all research problems will be fixed with this. But this is certainly one of the barriers, and this is one that can be overcome, I think. And that's part of the answer, but as we're going to talk about, it's really important that it be done right. All right, so let's talk about the benefits. So first of all, access is obviously the big benefit. We started with TED really over the issue of access. Cardboard and paper publishing is expensive. It's cheaper than back in the days when you had to hire someone to copy it by hand, right? It's also cheaper than hiring than you know, having one person who's a griot who's just going to say it to you, right? Like that's even more expensive. We don't think about that in terms of money, but that person has to eat, they have to have somewhere to live, right? That's actually expensive, whereas a printed book is much, much cheaper, right? That changed, the print changed everything. But compared to digital publishing, it's still pretty expensive. University presses, these are American dollar amounts, spend about $30,000 to $50,000 to publish a single book. That's a lot of money, right? And you might say, well, it'll be cheaper here in Uganda. Okay. What if it's $110,000, $3,000 to $5,000? It's still a lot of money, right? It's just very expensive to publish a book. This is, by the way, why authors sometimes think they're going to get rich off of academic publishing. Whenever you think your book's going to sell a lot of copies and you're going to get rich, you look at that number right there and realize you're not going to get rich. Average scholarly monograph now sells fewer than 500 copies. So even if you're spending $30,000 or even $3,000, you're going to sell fewer than 500 copies. Because when you're looking at academic and scholarly works, you're usually looking at things that have a very niche audience. The most important people in that field will want to read it, but there are not that many of them, right? Your greatest influence is to influence a very small number of people. So because of that, list prices can be $80 to $150 for a single academic book. I have a colleague, his book was priced at $300 a copy. Usually you send author copies to the author. They gave him one because it was $300 a copy. They couldn't afford to give him more than one. He has one copy of his own book. And he can't afford to buy other copies, right? What about journals? Academic journals, they average just under $500 to $2,300 per year per subscription. So so you're going to have to make your money off of library subscriptions because I can't afford this for this low price. I can't afford. If it were $500 a year to subscribe to the most important journal in my field, I don't know if I could afford that. It'd be very difficult. But libraries will, right? Which of course puts financial pressure on libraries. Digital publishing, The benefit is digital publishing removes that cost barrier. So for example, my company, most of our titles are priced at from between $3 and $5. Sorry, $4. $3 and $4. I think we have one book which is $10 because I don't even get into why it is $10, right? Obviously, the difference between a $10 book and an $80 book, a $10 book is much more affordable. Much more affordable. So these are the benefits. The first one is obviously access, right? Now, actually, this for Uganda, Uganda is well placed compared to most African countries for this. Uganda is some of the cheapest mobile internet in the world, right? So it can be as low as 2 cents per gigabyte, right? And and if you don't believe me, MTN spams me more than an ex-girlfriend who wants to get back together with me. Like it is constantly. MTN's always trying to sell me another package, right? And that is much cheaper because the global average, now it's cheaper in America than this, but is $2.50 to $3 per gigabyte. What this means is you actually have opportunities in Uganda to make things accessible that in other countries, like in Europe and things, would be much more expensive, much more difficult. So cost is not the barrier to digital access in Uganda. This is digital access, right? The barrier is coverage because, of course, internet penetration is only about 30%. And when you go up country, depending where you are, you can have good access, but sometimes you won't have great access, right? Now, ideally, we would want everyone to have access. But in a practical sense, most of the institutions of higher education, and thus the great audience for digital scholarly works is going to be in places that do have good internet access. So although this is not good if you want to give them to students and give access to students everywhere, this is very good for works that you want the most important scholars in Uganda to have access to. Because for them, it's cheap and pretty easily accessible. So it's very highly affordable, and so and for urban places and university audiences, this is good. And for most of what we're doing, as scholars, that's really going to be the best audience when you're starting to look at these things. Now, of course, those numbers are just going to get better as we get greater and greater internet coverage. I know I don't think it's been licensed yet, but and it's a little more, it's more expensive than this, but like Starlink can be accessed anywhere in the world. They're waiting to get licensed here in Uganda. All right, the second benefit is speed, but later on I'm going to give you some comments about this. So cardboard and paper publishing, it's 1 to 3 years from acceptance to print. That means it. So every time I've had a book published in print, later on people have read it's like, hey, what you said blah, blah, blah. What did you mean by that? I don't know, I wrote that 7 years ago. It actually is years later that you're looking at it. And that's from acceptance. That's not from when you begin writing, right? That's from acceptance. Digital publishing can be days or weeks after galley proofs are approved. Now, this is something that often people get confused about because the whole long process of peer review, the whole long editorial process, that still has to take place beforehand. And then the technical process that Michael McNamara is going to talk to you about later on, that still has to take place. But once that happens, if you have galley proofs, we can have that on. Usually we can have it, once the galley proof is approved, I hate to say this, Michael might be on it, and then say you got that wrong. I think you can usually have it on in 3 days to a week after that, not like a year, which is what you're looking at here. And anyone can access it. In fact, I did have one author a few years back, Michael had emailed me to tell me that he'd published a book, but I hadn't seen that yet. And the first email I got was from the author saying, hey, why didn't you tell me my book is already published? Well, I didn't know yet, because it can be that fast. And so, for certain kinds of scholarship, mine, which is medieval scholarship, tends to last a long time. But some fields don't. Some fields move very fast. It can reach readers before it becomes obsolete. So in some fields, publishing in a book, is going to be is not going to be very helpful. I've seen some drafts of, for example, one of my fields of expertise is AI. I've seen some things in books, and when I read that, I think, yeah, that was true 4 years ago, what's in that book, but it's not true today, and the book is already out of date at the moment it's published, right? All right, and the third one, which is really important for my field, and will be more or less important depending on the field, is flexibility of form. So, cardboard and paper publishing has what we call a no man's land. If it's short enough, it can be published as an article. Or if it's long enough, 250 pages or more, usually 250 is the bare minimum, they can publish it as a book. But if you have something that's 50 pages to 250 pages long, they can't afford to publish it. It doesn't make sense to publish something that's 100 pages long. And we've all been there. You've read academic books, and like the first 100 pages, you're like, all right, yeah, this is good. And then the last 2/3 are this long slog, which is them repeating themselves because otherwise they could never get published. And so, for example, in my field, we have a lot of medieval literary works that are greater than 50 pages, but they're not 250 pages. Those fall out, they can't get published unless they're published in big anthologies. Digital publishing, it doesn't matter if it's 1 page or 100,000 pages, right? There's no restriction. So we actually, my company, we were built specifically for this gap. We are not interested in publishing books that can easily find cardboard and paper publishers. We're looking at books that, because of their size, the size of the book, the content is valuable, but it could never get published. Now we can publish books that have very valuable content. So if you look at our books, you notice they tend to be very, very short compared to other books. And so they need, you need this. Cardboard and paper publishing needs a large audience to justify a print run, right? You need a mass market book. So if you only have dozens of ideal readers, digital publishing, a book for 40 readers is just as viable as a book for 4,000 readers or 400,000 readers. So one thing that we'll often say about ours is, because we only accept things that we think will have a long shelf life, we don't care if we only sell 20 copies a year. We don't care if we only sell 20 copies a year. We can make money, because 20 years from now, we'll still be selling 20 copies of that. We don't have to keep a warehouse of them. There will still be this access, et cetera, right? And so and the books never go out of print. One of the problems that in my research here that we found is, a lot of the original research I want to do, I don't have to do, because that research has been done by people before me. Why didn't I know that? Because those books went out of print 30 years ago, and they exist in archives or something. Well, one of the things I'm going to do is take that research and bring it out and bring it into digital print, right? Publish it digitally, not in its original form, but in the new form that fits this new medium, and in that case, then they should never go out of print. And so a good example of this is we have Alfred of Eincham's Later to See Award that Larry Swain published with us in 2017. I like this one because most people have never heard of Alfred of Einchem. Most people have never heard of See Award. This is a long, very interesting, very, very interesting book. Number one, it could never be printed. It's too long for an article and too short for a monograph book. So it can never be printed that way. And number two, there was almost no scholarship on it because it couldn't be printed. Scholars cannot do research on works that they don't have access to. And now that's available for $4 in print on demand, never out of print. So for the past 9 years, I guess. And so Larry Swain had wanted more scholarship on him, on this work, so he published this edition with us. Now he's able to have more scholarship on this. Now then, this one's going to come in, this is going to be important in a little bit. Author control. Now, again, academic publishing has never made authors rich. So again, we often have these people like, oh, I'm going to make so much money off this. No, you're not. That's not the point. The point is protecting your work, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more, but having control protects your work. With digital publishing, authors retain the rights to their own scholarship. Predatory publishers, we're going to talk about these a great deal, and I'm going to talk about these more I think when I do the one for the students and the general public. They're predatory publishers. They will take those rights from you and lock your work away or exploit it. And so we're going to talk about predatory publishers in a bit, but this is one of the valuable things. So, for example, our company, our authors retain their rights, they receive the majority of the revenue, and they can revise and update, right? So they receive, so like our authors, the net revenue we get from their book, they get 75% of that, I think is our current contract. Pardon me if I'm wrong, but that's about right? They get most of that. Now, if you're like, wow, they're getting rich. No, they're not, right? If your book is priced at $4 and every year 40 people buy it, you're not getting rich off of that, right? But they retain the rights to those. And so predatory publishers cannot then take that work and exploit it. You own what you wrote. And that is what's most important, because otherwise, people can take what your work, exploit it, and it's not that they're going to make what predatory publishers do is they steal work, and they might make pennies on this one, but they steal thousands of them to make a lot of money, right? That's not the problem. The problem is suddenly people are using your name in ways that you're not affiliated with. So also local relevance, and this might be very important here in Uganda. This would let Ugandan scholars publish for Ugandan audiences, because some things are going to be interesting to the entire world, but some things are not. Some things are only going to be interesting to people in Uganda, or maybe interesting in one kingdom or one region, right? This then will allow you to do that in these contexts. You don't have to chase international outlets. I'll say this politely, but some of you here I've had conversations with about this subject. Sometimes if you want to write about Africa, and you need to use particularly European, but European and American publishers, they really only want you to say certain things. And you end up having to take your research and compromise it in some ways. Hopefully not too much, but compromise it to get it in print. With this, you don't have to chase that. You don't have that because you have people who value local scholarship, but also they are part of the regional knowledge base, because the same sorts of things that Europeans don't want to hear about, Ugandans will know full well about. So depending on the subject, this can be very, very helpful. All right, let's talk about predatory publishers. I'm going to zoom through this a little bit more. I think probably when I do the one for the general public, we'll go through this more. This is one of the most serious threats in the African academic publishing venue space. Also, I would just say, I said African, I could just say period. It's a real big threat. It exploits the same openness that makes digital publishing valuable. So the very things that make digital publishing valuable, it exploits those things and uses it against it. And a predatory journal is one that looks legitimate, but is not. It's not legitimate. So, why are African scholars particularly targeted? First one is publish or perish pressure. If you want to get a promotion, you have to publish a certain number of articles, right? I mean, it's a very, the formula is very strict, right? So you're very eager to get your work published, and you will sometimes jump at an opportunity that has nothing to do, that is maybe not a good one. And there are a few quality local outlets. Again, one of the problems that I've heard scholars since I came here talking about is, I have this scholarship that's really valuable, but it's only valuable in Uganda, and there are only really these two publishers. I'm hoping one of these two publishers will take it, because I don't know what I can do if they don't take it, right? It's a real problem. There are gaps in institutional guidance. Why? Because there just isn't that much of it, right? So there's only so much guidance that you can get, whether you're talking about the university level or the national level even. And so promotion systems, they count publications without verifying quality. And this can be a real problem because you can fall prey to this. Okay, so the work in predatory journals seems to be visible. They make it sound like you're going to be seen everywhere, but it's invisible internationally. These things don't get put in databases, and so your work that you intended for people to see, they will not see. It doesn't build a verifiable publication record in global databases, and it can actively damage promotion prospects when discovered. So because of that, early career scholars, younger scholars, are more at risk. It's been enough years, I think I can tell this story without risking revealing who the person was. But a few years back, I was on the tenure promotion committee, and we had a very junior scholar who hadn't published his work. And he knew he had to publish. And he received an email from a journal he had never heard of, but had a very important sounding name. The email said, "Hey, we're interested in your work." And then he published that work with them, and he was shocked when literally the next day it was up on the website. And he thought, how is this possible? Like, you can't do peer review in one day, it's not possible. And then when he wanted then to publish, he said, well, I need to publish this legitimate publisher. No legitimate publisher would take it. Why? Because these guys already took it and they own it, and he doesn't own it. These predatory publishers, they really target young scholars, where early in their careers need this. And so this is a real danger that you have to concern yourself with. All right, how to spot it? There are lots of ways. Actually, the best way to spot it is by knowing what a real journal is. If you know all the real journals in your field and you've never heard of one, you can look into it. But some things to know. If they demand fees after acceptance, our company, for example, authors never pay a penny, right? We pay them, they don't pay us. There are some kinds of scholarly journals in the scientific fields that you do pay for images. That does happen, but that happens before acceptance. If they accept it, they say, hey, your work is accepted, also send us money. That's a predatory publisher. They're trying to steal your work. No clear or verifiable editorial board. Now, I want to be careful about this because if you can't find the editorial board, that's one thing. That's a real problem. So, for example, there's a small journal in India that asked me to be on their board, and I'm on the board of that small journal. But you can go and you can see my name there. Now, most importantly, if you ask me if I'm on that journal, I'll tell you yes, I am on that editorial board. However, occasionally you will see names, and those people don't know that they're listed. Another thing predatory journals like to do, predatory publishers like to do, is they'll say, we'll take Richard Scott Noakes' name and we'll put him on our editorial board, and he'll never know. And someone will go and they'll look and they'll say, oh, Noakes is on that board. Maybe it's good. But I don't know. So also, if you've never heard of this journal, and you see like someone you know or someone you think you can contact on that, ask them, contact them and say, hey, I see you're on this board. Are you on this board? If it's a journal you've never heard of, look at that. They have this implausibly fast turnaround, days, not weeks. I mean, it'll take you at least 6 months to get a journal article out there, even in digital publishing, because it takes long to go through the editorial process. Well, they don't, because they say they do peer review, but they don't. They look at it and go like, fine, there it is. Now, everyone who gives this page will get a little ad revenue for it. Also, the journal name mimics a legitimate publication. I find that these journal names almost always have the word international in it, have international, and they try to sound so important. We're the International Journal of Arts, Sciences, and Humanities. Arts, sciences, so of everything? You're the International Journal of everything, right? But if you're a very junior scholar, that sounds impressive, right? Aggressive, unsolicited email invitations. And this is one thing, this is how they catch people. They send you an email and they say, hey, we've heard you're a very important scholar in your field. Hey, we're interested in your work. But when you look at it, you realize they don't know your work. I was contacted recently, about 2 weeks ago by a major company that's involved in the education space. And they've been emailing me for a couple months. I never answered them. Why? Because why are they aggressively pursuing me? Like, why are they doing this? And it was only 2 weeks ago I got an email from them saying, hey, we've been emailing you. We specifically want to talk about, we saw what you did. We saw the YouTube of your presentation at Kyambogo University. Like, oh, this is real people, right? But they had to, they really had to, you have to be careful. And so I have a meeting with them coming up soon, because it turned out they were not. They were not fake. All right. So you do have some tools for verification. There's something called Think, Check, Submit. ThinkCheckSubmit.org. This is a kind of checklist that helps you evaluate any journal before you submit. Scopus Journal Search. Your students here love the Scopus Journal Search. If that journal isn't on Scopus, it could be a very small journal, or it might be a predatory publisher, right? If you publish in a Scopus Index journal, that builds your verifiable international publication record. If journals aren't there, that might be invisible to the wider academic world. Now, I'm not here to tell you don't publish in things that aren't in Scopus. In fact, I think you should be open to publishing things that are not in Scopus. However, if it's not in Scopus, then it's time to start looking, going like, well, okay, is this real? Right? Then you have to double check. There's also for Science Journal List and Clarivate, and there's also a predatory journal. It's called predatoryjournals.org. I'm not sure how much that is updated, so I wouldn't use that as my final source. But if you see something on that list, that's bad. That's bad. You don't want anything that's on there. Okay. All right, there are some legitimate limitations that you have to think about besides, well, what if Kyambogo makes its own journals? You don't have to worry then about it being predatory because it's yours, right? And it's fine. But there are still limitations. Number one, prestige factor. Now, it's changing. But I will say if you go back 10 years ago, that was published in an online journal, or that was kind of seen like, I don't know, is that good? Now that's changing, but still today, I'll just say, people are far more impressed about the very, very, very short note article that is not, to me, very impressive, that I got published in Oxford University Press, versus my much more important work that's published in other online forums, right? Now that's changing, as I said, but it's still something to be concerned about. Small operations are fragile. Sustainability does matter. So let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, that you publish with Witten Publishing, right? And I'm going to be honest about this. Well, Michael McNamara would really love, we've been talking, he'd really love to come visit us here in Uganda. Let's say that he were to come here to Uganda. And let's say that he and I were to be traveling, and a lion jumps out of a tree and eats us both. Witten Publishing probably would not survive that. And it might be difficult then for an author to, we use methods so that works would stay in print, but it might be difficult for an author to reestablish their ownership of their work, right? And so when you're looking at small operations, you do have to be careful about that. One thing to think about for journals is this issue of sustainability, right? And the issue of do they belong to organizations, right? So infrastructure also matters. Platforms come and go, and so you want ones that are going to be flexible. So one thing that we do at Witten is we're careful to make sure we don't just publish, in one form. Our books can be available in, you can get our, as platforms have changed, the formats in which we publish our books have changed so that they will still be available. Now, coverage, not cost, is Uganda's access barrier. Because it's internet penetration issues we talked about, not all readers can be reached digitally yet, but you do have to think about those issues also. All right. Now, all that is in theory for you, and warnings and encouragements. What could Kyambogo University actually do? And I do hope our library team that was interested in this gets a chance to look at this later on. There are two parallel tracks I want to talk about. One is a publish forward track, which is about publishing a new digital journal or new digital journals, plural. Another is publish backward track, digitizing the existing research backlog. So you might have things that exist here, which is research that just has no place to be published, but is already out there. These tracks share infrastructure, and they can run at the same time. So you can do both at the same time. That would be my recommendation. But they both require an important thing. Someone has to own it. Someone has to own it. And I don't mean someone has to own the particular article, but somewhere in the Kyambogo administrative bureaucracy, there has to be someone who's in charge of this. Now, my understanding is that's probably, given the structure you have here, that's probably going to be someone in the library, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. In my university, back when we had a university press, I don't think it was run out of the library. I think it was run out of advancement. Anyway, there are other offices it can be run out of. All right, so let's start with the first steps. First step would be to form a working group. It should be a small working group. Because if you have too many people involved at the beginning means it becomes a debating society. You know what happens when a committee has too many people on, right? So, one, you need a faculty lead. You need someone, faculty here would be teaching staff is what this means, right? Of course, in American English faculty, I should have thought of this when I put this together. Faculty doesn't mean college, this means teaching staff. So one person who's from the teaching staff, the kind of person who would be publishing this journal, right? That kind of person. It doesn't have to be someone even from that field, necessarily, who will publish that journal. In fact, probably they shouldn't publish in that journal while it's getting established, but you do need someone from the administration. One librarian. They know the infrastructure here. You need that person. And one administrator with budget authority. You know, the group of people I see here are a lot of very smart people with a lot of good scholarship, and I've read a lot of it. And we can dream all day long, but unless someone has money, who controls money is part of that, it's not going to happen, right? I would recommend a group this small, maybe one or two others, but as small as you can, right? That group has to make all the subsequent decisions to start things out. That's the beginning. Without this, nothing else happens. So I can talk here and we can all dream, but this has to happen. Everyone can see how it works. Then you can do the other ones, but they're gonna have to decide the one which might be this department or this faculty. It might not be, but eventually, hopefully, they will all be served. What kind of that is a strength, right? A lot of times people want to cast as wide a thing as possible. No, narrower the focus, the better. Later on, you can have many journals covering many fields. Right? But at first, you're going to need one to be the best journal in that one area, to be the example that you're going to use later on as you're building others backwards. Okay, step 2. Recruit an editorial board, and this is the hard part. Believe it or not, money's not the hard part, this is the hard part. Recruit an editorial board. These have to be scholars who have standing in the field. Write a clear peer review policy. Now, I want to be frank, because this is something I know you're very desirous of doing. Having come here, I've discovered that there are many policies at Kyambogo that are not clear. You need to make the peer review policy clear, both for the person who's submitting, but more importantly, so people who want to submit go like, is this real? This is an electronic journal. Is this real? And they can look and go, oh, this is the peer review policy. This is how it works. I'd recommend putting that online too, or somewhere where people can look at it. Set author guidelines and submission process. There has to be guidelines and submission process that are created. And I would recommend doing one that is replicable over many journals if you want to keep replicating this. Establish a publishing ethics statement, and then register for an ISN which apparently you can get through the Uganda National Library. I actually don't know the process. I was looking at this and found out that you can do this for free. So that shouldn't be a problem there. All right, then you have to choose a platform. And Michael can talk more about this later, but platform choice determines how much it's going to cost, the format, and how long it's going to be sustainable. Once you do that, you want to apply for listing on the African Journals online. That way it can be visible to other scholars. It's free to join. And Michael's going to cover this more, so I'm going to skip this so he can talk about it, someone who knows better than I do. And then finally, publish for it. You want to get that first issue out there. Solicit submissions from the faculty. Start with the faculty you know who have strong work. Okay, for the first one. After that, you're going to you may of course have colleagues in other institutions who are known quantities. They also would be good if you're like, I don't want it all to be Kyambogo's, right? But the first issue, known quantities, people you know are good. Complete the peer review process. Even if you're like, this person's good, you still have to put them through the process. Because otherwise, other people who come later will go like, is this real? That's what makes it real. And this is, by the way, is why it takes so long, even in digital publishing. This is a long process, right? Publish it and announce it, and then submit it for Scopus indexing consideration. That way, it gets shown elsewhere. So that's publishing forward, new stuff. Well, you can also you may also have a backlog here. Things that are out there that could have been published or are in archives here and are gone, right? This is up to the library and the staff there to really to tell you what they have. I have no idea what is available here, if anything, right? But you want to ask your faculty for your teaching staff for unpublished or print-only research. Sometimes they have things that they put in print, but have fallen out of print, so they have the right to republish it. If it was in print but fell out of print, they usually have the right to republish it. They republish it digitally. Right? You want to identify, 5-10 works as a pilot, and then prioritize the work that is complete and requires minimal revision, right? Later on, for publish forward, you're gonna work with stuff that's in process. But this, for your first issues of this, you want stuff that's already ready to go. It's almost ready to go. Okay. Now, you have to worry about permissions on this. Confirm that the author retains rights to their work. If it was previously published in print, they gotta look at that contract. Most of the time in the United States, if a book falls out of print for 2 years, the rights revert back to the author. That's not, but in the last 5+ years, because some publishers have thought, oh, maybe we will want to digitally publish it later, but then they don't. They've changed those contracts, so they have to check to see, do they have the right to their work? Make sure the rights have reverted back. Establish a kind of simple author agreement for digital republication. That shouldn't be very hard. In point of fact, I gave a lecture on artificial intelligence. You can start with asking AI to help you draft that, because this is very frozen legal language. You don't want this to be, this part shouldn't be creative. This part should be not creative at all. And then this needs to protect both the author and also Kyambogo from someone saying, hey, you stole our work. That still belongs to us, right? So that is an important part of this for publishing backlog. And then you got to digitize and format, and Michael's going to talk about that. But the works have to be converted to standard digital formats, and you have to apply that consistent formatting and metadata, assign DOIs, which is what is the DOI digital? Something index. Anyway, digital identifiers, that's it, the identifiers. That make works findable and citable, right? It's easier for people to find them and cite them, and that's really where the library infrastructure is going to matter most. Then, finally, on that, you're going to want to publish and register. Make them available through the journal platform, register again with AJOL for regional visibility, announce it to the faculty. Make sure that your teaching staff know this. The national government is really trying to push research quality, right? Well, make sure everyone knows that it's happening here at Kyambogo. Each work published is a step, especially the step backwards, is showing, no, we've been doing it, you just haven't seen it. Now you can see what we have done, and with the publish forward, we're going to show you what we're doing in the future. And so, the foundation of all these is you want to make sure that your faculty think, check, and submit before anyone submits anywhere, right? Not just here. You want to build institutional awareness about predatory publishers before anyone gets hurt. It was really sad. The faculty member whose work had been stolen, he did not get tenure. He lost his job. And so you need to protect the faculty, protect the teaching staff, especially the early career researchers. And then, if you want to publish well, you have to teach your researchers how to publish well. Even if they're not publishing here, you teach them how to publish well. Okay, so I want to hand this over to Michael McNamara, who I hope is online. I guess I'll find out. I'll introduce him and we'll see if he's there. Who he is?
He's online.
Okay, all right, so let me introduce him beforehand. This is handsome visage here. He's very big. In real life, he's smaller than this. He's the systems architect at Witten Publishing. He does the technical side, platforms, formats, infrastructure, all the stuff that I am completely incompetent to do. He does, although I will say we had a meeting with I'm not sure we're allowed to say it, so I'll just say a major international tech consulting company. And one of the things that we ended up talking about was how there's basically no one in that field who knows as much about medieval literature as this guy does. He's worked in the digital publishing field for 15 years, primarily for Witten, and the online should be academic textbooks for medievalism. He's also works as a consultant in information technology field, focusing on cybersecurity, something that he might talk about generally, but he will not give you any specifics about because the security side. But he also understands that very well. He lives in Michigan, which is a state in the northern part of the United States where Hula comes from, with his wife, has 3 cats, and an extensive collection of science fiction novels. So let me turn this off and let Michael talk to the crew here. I gotta stop sharing first. What I have to do is let him. Oops. I think I'm still showing my screen here.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there. Don't save it.
You were not.
There you go.
Okay. Do we see you now, Michael? All right.
I mean, I can see you. Can you see me?
Yeah, we can see you. Okay, I'm going to pin you to the main screen here for everyone to see. Okay. Go ahead. I'll turn this off so I don't get feedback.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm going to be sharing. Yeah, sure. I'm going to be sharing my presentation from another computer. So at that point, let me know when you want me to start sharing, and you can pin the other screen I've got.
Okay.
All right. Well, it's weird. Weird me being on a giant screen like this. Hello, everybody. Like Nook says, I'm smaller in real life. Like Nook says, I'm going to be giving you just kind of a rough kind of outline of the digital publishing I do at Witten, as well as just a quick primer on kind of the hardware and the software we use. Am I coming through clear, Nooks? You can hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Awesome. All right. Do you mind finding the other? Let me start sharing my presentation I made. Let's see.
Okay. I will unpin you and I will pin that.
All right.
And hold on. I think I failed. Let me try again.
No, I think it's working. I can see.
It's not on our. What is it? Is it
Oh.
working on this end? Hold on, let me double check. Let me pin that again.
Sure.
Okay, I think it's working here now. Does that look
Does
right?
it say digital publishing and welcome?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. All right. Welcome everybody. Like Noakes says, I'm Michael McNamara. I've known Noakes longer than I've even been working in information technology. We started our digital publishing business about 15 years ago. We've seen the industry get bigger and then smaller, and then over the past 4 or 5 years here, get a lot bigger again. Our books, like Noakes explained, because we publish mostly digitally, our books are available in dozens of countries worldwide. I could get the actual number of countries if I wanted to, but it's generally not important to me. It's a lot of countries. I think it was like 30 or 40 at least that we published through various big distributors. And like Noakes says, our titles are very low cost because of that. There's no cost for storing books or printing books. You don't need to ship the books. Amazon particularly charges us a very funny little tiny shipment fee for just the cost of moving electrons around, and it's fractions of a cent per book, something like that. So it enables us to publish books worldwide very easily, and most importantly in different parts of the world where the currency exchange may make our things more expensive. It still keeps things approachable in those countries. And let me know if any of this stuff is too small on your screen. I tried to make it big enough. I didn't know what size of screen I would be on.
I think the screen here is pretty big, so we can see it pretty well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, here's just 3 examples of the books we make. The first one on the left there is kind of like a dictionary for old English. That I don't want to insult Noakes and call it dead language, but I guess it technically is, right. But a very nice kind of example of a dictionary we sell. It's a essentially like a reference book where it's 200-300 pages. you know, it works kind of like a combination dictionary and grammar guide for Old English. It's our most popular title, I think, because it's a reference book. You know, people want to buy it and just have a copy of it around, and because of that, we sell quite a few copies of it. The one in the middle there is a book on art, what's called insular art forms, which is a type of art form common in I guess it'd be the late Bronze Age in Ireland and England and that part of the world. It's a book I put it up here because it's a book we have that had a lot of pictures in it. It's got a lot of graphics in it. It's slightly, even electronically, it's bigger. It's about the size. You know, it would be best read on a tablet computer. But it's an example of something that, you know, like Dr. Noakes was explaining earlier, there was a lot of work that this author put into it, but in the end it was 80 or 90 pages of beautifully done artwork about this particular type of artwork, and nobody would touch that. It's 80 or 90 large pages of artwork. Like Noakes explained, it's too small for a publisher to touch, so it was perfect for our method of distribution. And the last one there is, and Noakes, forgive me for the pronunciation, Alfred Geweinschum was the...
That's pretty good.
...title that Noakes was... Yeah, oh, thank you. The title that Noakes was published earlier on there. I'm very fond of this title too, because it took us the longest time to publish with the author, going back and forth for probably a decade. You know, not because of any delay on our end, just because the author took 10 years to go back and forth with us, and the nature of our business, because like Noakes says, once we finally get done with the peer review and the creation of the book, it only takes us 2 to 3 weeks at that point to get it released. So we were happy to tell the author, hey, take as long as you want to. It's your scholarship. You know, you publish it when you want to. We will publish it as whenever you're eventually done. So after 10 years, we finally got done with it. And it is a beautifully done translation of a letter that was written to and once again, Noakes, please correct me if I'm wrong, a pagan king, one of the last pagan kings in Britain, by Alfred, encouraging him to convert to Christianity. And it's a very, very interesting little primer done in the 11th century of kind of almost like a sales pitch for Christianity. It was like, hey, here's Christianity, here's the kind of pros and some of the cons that you'll get from it. A very, very, very neat work. Okay, so the main thing we publish is a thing called an ebook, which is it's just a form of document. It's similar to a PDF. Noakes told me that most of you there are familiar with PDFs. So an EPUB or ebook is very similar to that. It's a file which is distributed around that you read locally. The difference between PDFs and ebooks is PDFs were originally invented and designed specifically for printing. You know, you would send a PDF to somebody, they would then print it into a hard copy, and then they would read the hard copy. It was never intended to be read for a long time originally on a computer. You know, because the world has become so much more digital in the past 10, 15 years, a lot of people are reading PDFs online, but the format was never intended for that originally. So because of that, you know, as widely as it's used, there's some limitations that PDFs have that don't make them great for distribution. You know, number one, their size can sometimes be very large. Like I say, it was made to be presented to a print shop to print into hard copy. So, you know, compression and efficiency was never the original concept for a PDF. Now, an ebook, on the other hand, an EPUB was designed to be distributed very quickly. The file sizes are often very, very small. It can be read on many different types of devices because it was never intended to be printed. An ebook, you know, you can read it on I'll explain this in a minute. You can read it on a phone. You can read it on a tablet computer. You can read it on a personal computer. You can read it on a purpose-built e-reader device. Actually, I have one here. I've got it in my got it in my other office. It can be read in many different places, and most importantly, it can be adapted for each reader on their personal basis. So you can make the text as big or as large as you want, and it doesn't affect what's called the flow of the book. You could still use it like a book. You don't have to be constantly zooming, maybe like you do like with a PDF. You have to constantly zoom a PDF and unzoom and pan around. With an ebook, it's almost as if you just have a book in your hand and you've just magically made it large print. A lot of older relatives I've got really love them for that. They can get the ebook. They can increase the font size very high, for their eyes, which may struggle with reading small print. And they love it for that reason. So the types of devices here. The e-reader, the one at the top there, is the purpose-built device that I was talking about. They often look like a very small. You probably can't see what I'm talking. You can't see my sharing my presentation. They look like a small tablet computer.
We can see you in the corner too, Michael.
Oh, okay, that's fine. But just imagine it. It's like
No, we can see you. We can see you. You can hold up things. We can see you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, there we go. So it's about this size. It's kind of like a very small tablet or very large phone. The difference is, unlike a phone or a tablet, it's just made for reading books on. That's it. It doesn't do anything else, which may seem like an extravagant expense, but they're often less than or the same price as a phone. And the main difference is because they don't have I won't get too deep into the weeds on the technology, but their screens, the way they're designed, use so little power to show the book on the screen, because that's all they do is show a book, that the battery life on an e-reader is measured in months, not days or hours like a mobile phone. I charge up an e-reader and I can read on it several hours a day for 2 or 3 months sometimes before needing to charge it up again. So, it's a device that you only have to think about charging 4 to 5 times a year, maybe. Compared to a personal computer, which, especially in the United States, what a lot of academics do their reading on, which still surprises me. A personal computer, you're sitting there at a desk with a keyboard, hunched over, reading real close to a screen for hours and hours and hours. It's my least favorite way of reading. You can read our books that we publish on personal computers if you want to. I would recommend getting an electronic reader, but we publish them to as wide a place as we can. And then, of course, the last one is phones and tablets. A phone is not the best thing to read on, but it's way better than a personal computer, in my opinion, because, on planet Earth, nearly everybody has a phone right now. If you need to read a book, you need to read one of our books, your phone is already capable of doing that right now. It's much less ergonomically damaging to read on a phone compared to a personal computer. It's the one kind of I promote the most. Like Noakes and I, we'd love if everybody had an e-reader, in their hand. But short of that, a phone is perfectly okay. You just have to charge it up a lot. And that's pretty much it. My contact information. I don't mind you having that. If anybody ever wants to shoot me an email, I've got 2 separate emails there, my personal one and my business one. Any questions, or Noakes, if you had any questions for me, specifically about the size of things, or how easy or hard, or unique difficulties, that kind of thing.
You want to handle questions? You want to do that? Okay. As it turned out, let me unpin this and put you back up here, big. As it turned out, the library staff mostly were not able to be here today, but they're going to. I know. Oh, there's somebody on the, oh, there we go, on the screen. You can't see them, but we can. So I guess I would first ask the kind of very technical question for them. If they were starting a new journal, if they were starting a new e-journal, how would you have them, what would you recommend to them in terms of the platform they would use and the different kinds of file formats that are available? And don't be afraid to go hyper technical in this one, because you might have someone later on who actually understands you as opposed to me.
Sure. As far as if you were wanting hypothetically to publish a journal with us, the secret answer is I'm good enough at my job that pretty much anything you give me I can make work. But there's definitely preferences I have, such as if it's a PDF, I'd rather not deal with it. PDFs are, like I said, PDFs were originally intended to be used in print publishing. So going backwards and making a PDF, specifically for electronic publishing worldwide can be kind of difficult. It's like I'm trying to think of what the equivalent of this. It's like somebody wants a statue made and they draw it for you on a piece of paper, and then the PDF is essentially the statue being made out of stone. And somebody would then take that statue to me and say, hey, I want this statue, now turned into a painting. Well, it would have been easier had I had the original sketch on paper to turn into a painting than it would be for me to look at a statue and do it. I'm not a great artist, that's not my specialty. So when it comes to submitting things to a company like mine to publish digitally, the more raw the format, the better. Such as, if you're doing the most of your work in Microsoft Word or LibreOffice or Google Docs or something like that, to keep it in that format, to the final, say the printing stuff, making the text look nice and different sizes of text. That's a thing that you as the author or you as the scholar never need to worry about. You would just give the most basic raw form of information to a company like mine, and we would take care of all that stuff for you. We have our own format and the way we want things to look anyway. So, your kind of desires on that are I don't want to say they're not important to me, but they're not important. The book has to look a certain way for publishing, so I'm going to turn it into that way. Any kind of formatting you put on it, I'm going to have to remove anyway. And the best authors I work with are actually the least artistic. They're the ones that just give me raw text, say, here's my scholarship, here's my work, turn it into something pretty and publish it. Those are the easiest for me to work on. It takes me the longest to, such as one author that I'm working with right now that Nooks knows who I'm talking about, that their work that they submitted to us has a lot of formatting and a lot of artistry done to it, and I'm having to undo all of that because that's not how publishing works. I don't publish what you give me. I make what you give me able to be published. So, I know better. But yeah, that's it. It's honestly not hard. The harder part is what Noakes was talking to, scholars about. The harder part is the side of the business I'm not involved with. That's the scholarship and the academic side. That's the tough side. Once you're done with all that and you have the text of the journal put together, then I take my company like mine takes it at that point, and we make our magic happen.
Can you talk a little bit about? Can you hear me, Michael? Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about first of all general issues of format, like dealing with images, dealing with wraparound text. What are some types of things that are going to be easier to turn into to publish digitally versus things that will be more difficult? You alluded to some of them, but I wonder if you could get a little bit more into the weeds on that.
Sure. As far as difficulties, the hardest thing images are very, very, very difficult to publish digitally. You know, you can put an image on, it all depends on what is someone going to be reading them in. And the nature of what we do is I try to keep the books that my company makes as universally available as possible. I don't personally care if someone reads it. You know, I have my preference. My preference is an e-reader, like an Amazon Kindle or a Kobo Libra. But I have to understand that my preferences, you know, don't affect the final customer. The customer may want to read their book on. They may only have a personal computer. They may only have a phone. You know, I can't control that, so I have to make the books that I publish, that I help publish, as widely available. With text, that's easy. Text, like I said, I can make reflow and look good on any device. Images are a totally different thing. Some images will show up very good on a personal computer. Some show up fine on a phone. Some will show fine on an e-reader, but an e-reader device that I was talking about earlier, that's like my preference, was not designed to show images. It was designed to show text. It was designed to be a device you read books on, not a device you looked at pictures on. You know, a phone would be better for that. So, you know, if one was wanting to publish a journal that was heavily picture-based or had a lot of pictures, you know, my recommendation would be to keep them at a minimum. They're just, you know, not only can I not control how they're going to look on the final customer reading device, but they're also just much bigger. Picture, you know, one picture could be the size digitally of an entire book when it comes to pure megabytes. So, you know, I try to avoid them as much as possible.
Can you talk a little bit about special characters?
Special characters too they're an interesting thing to deal with. You know, they're not as hard as they used to be. Without getting too technical, you know, showing special characters on a computer screen or any sort of electronic screen used to be a very big problem a long time ago. Computers were only limited to a very small subset of characters that they could show, and anything outside of that, you know, even some countries in the world that use the Latin script will have special character. German has things with umlauts. You know, Polish, you know, has a bunch of fun characters they have in Polish, for instance. Today, it's not as big of a problem. Today, modern computers, e-readers, phones, tablets, personal computers can show a lot of characters. Very rarely do I encounter characters, things, you know, what we call special characters, that I can't effectively show. The first time that it really ever happened was, when was it? It was Runes. It was Becker's book with Old Norse runes. There was no existing way that a computer could. There was no font that was made for Old Norse runes that was widely available. I had to actually make little itty bitty images of each rune and display it. Each kind of, you wouldn't call them pictographs. They're not pictograph notes. They're runes, right?
Yeah, they're runes.
Okay, runes. Yeah. You know, I had to make little pictures of them to display, which felt bad to do, but there was no other way to describe it. But you know, outside of extremely rare alphabets, which have been dead for 1,500 years and nobody uses anymore, special characters are luckily not much of a problem anymore, which is nice.
Including mathematical characters?
Including mathematical characters. Mathematical characters are actually quite easy.
And then, I know other people might have questions, but before they do, I want to ask one more question, and I'll hand it off. Can you talk a little bit about the different file formats for e-publishing, the different,
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, and real quick, and I know you said don't be afraid to get into technical stuff, but I hate getting into technical stuff because not only do I notice people's eyes, and I can't see anybody's eyes, but people's eyes will start to droop and fall asleep because it gets so boring. so fast. But there's two major forms, you know, other than PDF, which everybody's mostly available for or familiar with. There's two major forms of electronic book in the world. There is EPUB, which is the kind of open standard. It's available. It can be read on anything. I don't believe there's any licensing involved in it, so anybody can publish a book with it. It's my personal preference for books. Unfortunately, in the United States at least, like so many things, there's a corporate standard, which is the main standard. It's Amazon's Kindle format, which is not an open standard, which is harder to use. You know, it's not really commonly seen in the rest of the world, which is a good thing. But they do the same things, basically. They do exactly the same things. Just one, Amazon, the company, owns, and the other, EPUB, is a free standard that anybody can use.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, Mike. Julius here, at the Department of Literature and Film Studies, Kyambogo University. Good to meet you.
My apologies if I have to ask you to repeat. The audio is not the best quality. Right?
It's fine. So,
Do you want to go near
Yeah,
near the computer to ask me?
sure.
Yeah.
You can see me?
Yeah, no, I can see it, yes.
Good, thank you. My name is Julius Bamturaki, Department of Literature and Film Studies. I think I've heard quite a lot about you from Knox. It really talks fondly of you. It tells me you are the greatest expert in tech issues. And so I'm happy. First of all, thank you so much for your insightful presentation on this issue of digital publishing. So I just have a few issues here. One, I would like to, because now given that Witten Publishing Company, which I think is the company you work for, majorly prioritizes or specializes in the publication of books on medieval literature, does that mean that any digital publishing company must stick to one field or discipline or subject? Or are there any issues, for example, if a company decided to go multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary? I think that's one question. Then the other one is, are there major ethical issues in digital publishing? I would also want to hear more about that. And then finally, what is the status of digital publishing in the United States of America? I think the one which Professor Knox presented here is rather alarming. I think in Uganda, I think it's too little. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Julius. I promise we will answer every single question you had as soon as Dr. Knox, as soon as you help me understand what exactly was said there.
What was the first question?
The problem is totally just the audio quality.
Yeah, we have a loud microphone here, so you're getting feedback. I
That's
think.
what it,
So
that's what it was.
first question
I
was
can
about-
understand it was a loud microphone.
The first question is, does the digital publishing company have to only focus on one discipline? Are there any issues of interdisciplinary publishing?
So he's asking if a digital publishing company like Witten has to only publish on one field like medieval literature, or if it can publish on many different things. The second question
The
was.
second question is ethical issues in digital publishing.
He wanted to know if there are specific ethical issues in digital publishing we have to concern ourselves with. And then what was last?
And then finally, the status of digital publishing in the US.
Just generally, what's the status of digital publishing in America?
Oh, sure, okay. So the first question about what types of things we can publish, for Witten Publishing specifically, and notes, I stepped into the presentation shortly after you got started, so I apologize if you've already talked about this, but we publish mostly, it was up to this point, mostly European scholarship for the European Middle Ages, so anywhere from 3 to 400 AD to, as I understand, 15 or 1600 AD, anywhere in that period. We have other what's called imprints, where we publish other works that are not exactly in that area of scholarship. but it's so, I don't want to say it's so easy to publish digitally, but the barrier of entry is so low for us publishing worldwide. I'm personally willing to publish anything of which there's a desire for it to be published. If Noakes and I suddenly got a lot of scholars coming to us that all had scholarship about, I'm trying to think about the most random thing here in the world, automobiles in the 1930s, and there was just a huge amount of interest in this field, we would create a whole separate company just for that, because we would find scholars, we would find peer reviewers, and then I would just take the same process I used to publish books for medieval scholarship in Europe for another field.
Yeah, if I could add to that. So I know, having had a conversation with the librarian, that Kyambogo is interested in creating an in-house digital journal. If instead Kyambogo or some part of the university said, oh, we want to create an imprint of work through Wittem Publishing, then that's something that we'd be open to doing. But there are two things you have to know about that. First of all, the primary editorial work would have to be done here at Kyambogo. I'm not an expert in all these different things, and so we'd have to create in-house the same kind of we'd have to create in-house the same kind of peer review process, etc. We'd probably make you run through our normal peer review process, but you'd have to provide the editorial board and have an editor, a head editor of that imprint who actually knew what he or she was talking about, unlike me, for whatever that field is. So that's the first thing to know. The second thing is that we don't publish works for free. So a lot of open access stuff is published for free. Our prices are low. Okay, they are low, but they're not going to be free. They're going to be, $3 to $5 probably. They can go up depending on. I mean, I think we start only $3, then we went up to $4 and $5 on some because 15 years has gone by in inflation. So if that's something that the library here or some scholarly organization here wanted to do, that's something we'd be open to. I think I'm not talking out of school. Michael also, by the way, I should say, is not just the systems architect, he's one of the founders also, so he definitely has a decision-making role in this as well as I do. Okay, did you want to talk about ethical issues?
Yeah, definitely. Ethical issues, depends what exactly we mean when we say ethics here. There's business ethics, there's political ethics, there's moral ethics, maybe. Ethics.
What kind of ethics?
Oh, sorry.
Well, he was asked about academic ethics, and I can address some of that, but you can also address anything with the technology that's important for academic ethics.
Sure. Yeah. As far as the ethics side, Dr. Noakes, that's mostly your side of the business. Like I explained earlier, that's the side of the business that the academics, the professors, and the doctors all take care of. And by the time it gets to me, all the ethical problems have been hammered out and taken care of. It's never ethics is luckily, I'm very lucky that it's not a thing I have to worry about. I trust the academics that I work with to be very smart people, to know that we're not publishing something terrible that's going to hurt the future of humanity. And I know that's not going to happen. As far as any technology ethics, technological considerations for ethics that I would have, not really. This is a strange answer, the only ethical consideration I would have would be if somebody wanted me to publish something and they wanted it to only be available in this country or only be available on this particular brand of device, I would say no. my personal ethics when it comes to publishing is I want things distributed as widely as possible. I want them to be available in all the countries of the world. I want them to not be, like if somebody, the price too, if an author wanted us, no, we only want our ebook published for $50, I would say no. No, that's too expensive. I want somebody who has very little money but would still like to purchase this to be able to purchase it. I don't want to set the price very high. So outside of technological and price ethics, I don't have any, like, all the other ethics are Noakes' business, but the technological price ones would be those ones.
Yeah, I'd say the ethics for print and digital publishing are basically the same kind of peer review process, same kind of issues of, obviously, if, you know, it's the same kind of things you have informed consent forms, right? You can't be publishing information that someone doesn't have the right to publish, but that's true no matter what. I would say because digital publishing companies tend to be smaller, one thing you do have to be concerned about is so we use double-blind peer review, and that's, I think, probably the best way to go. But that means there's usually only one or two people who know who the peer reviewer is and who the author is. And so in our case, I handle all the peer review. And so I don't think, have I ever, I mean, Michael has access to this information if he wants, because he's one of the founders and owners, but have we ever talked about who any of our peer reviewers are, ever? I think we haven't, right? Yeah.
I try to stay out of, the less I know about that, the better. I like being insulated from that whole side.
So what that means is, I'm really the only person who knows if the peer review is actually happening. And if I'm a big fat liar about it, you know, a lot of unethical things could happen. Now, unfortunately, because peer review takes such a long time, and authors are impatient, all of our authors know full well we went through peer review because they had to deal with it. But what that would mean is that if you establish journals in-house, and you have double-blind peer review, or you establish journals, or you were to like have an imprint with WITAN or something like that, whatever very small group of people is in charge, or 1, 2, or maybe 3 people are in charge of handling the peer review, those people you have to be sure are of the highest ethical caliber, because otherwise you could end up with unethical things happening, and you won't know until long after. Because from the outside it'll look like the process happened, but inside it doesn't. But that has more to do with starting a new publication. It is not particular to the technology. And I think the last question was about the state of digital publishing in America.
Yeah. The last question is the one I know the most about, and the state of digital publishing. Was it the state of digital publishing in general worldwide, or the state of digital publishing in
the US.
the United States?
In the U.S. is what he was asking.
Oh.
But you can talk about worldwide if you want.
Sure. I'll answer both of them just for fun. In the United States, the state of digital publishing is in a very strange place right now. There was a lot of publicity and a lot of interest about 15 years ago when we started. It was when the first e-reader devices, which could last for, like I was explaining before, months on a charge, that you only needed to charge them 5 times a year. Those were first being created and distributed in the mid to late 2000s, and around 2010, there was a lot of interest in them. So when we first got started with WITAN, there was a lot of activity, a lot of sales, a tremendous amount of sales. And then I learned, and I won't get too into boring business talk, but there's a particular type of thing called the Gartner Hype Chart, which Noakes has heard me talk about a lot now. And it's a chart which shows the rate of adoption of new technologies, where when they're first introduced, and this is the same for AI or electric cars or robotics or anything. There's a tremendous amount of interest and everybody's talking about it, and then everybody realizes that it's not going to do everything magically you want it to do, and then interest in it drops. And nobody's really talking about it. And then slowly over time, more and more people look into it, and more people get interested into it. And so when it comes to the state of electronic publishing in the United States, we went through that rise, we went through the dip, and now we're in the slow, steady uptake. Around about, our sales kind of dipped to their lowest point around 2015 or 2016, and then since then, it's been going up and up and up and up and up until we're now the same levels of sales we were in the early kind of eclipsing that. The pandemic was a huge kind of bonus in sales because everybody realized, hey, I don't have the ability to go out and browse a bookstore right now, but I can download books at home. So a lot more people started doing that, especially digitally. A lot of our submissions from academics came after the pandemic. We've had more submissions from academics since 2021 than we had for the preceding 10 or 11 years. I've published more books here in the past few years, than I did the preceding 10 probably. So we're definitely, it doesn't have the rate of, there's not as much adoption for electronic publishing as I'd like for there to be, but it's still that same hype chart I talked about, the way all technologies work. We're definitely on the upslope. It's definitely more and more people are getting interested in it. More and more people are realizing that it's a better form of publishing because of the lack of limitations from print. As far as the rest of the world, and that's not what you asked, but rest of the world adoption of ebooks has never really changed that much because our texts are published in English. Definitely the English-speaking world is the biggest place for our books to be bought. The United Kingdom, a lot in Canada, and then a few countries where they may have English speakers. Weirdly, Japan. We sell a decent number of books in Japan. I think it's just a kind of connection between America and Japan there. And Germany, we sell a lot of books in Germany. Not to mention all the rest of the world. In America, the state of electronic publishing is mostly one big giant company called Amazon. Amazon is everything. Amazon sells everything. If your books are not on Amazon, nobody will read them. In the rest of the world, it's a lot more distributed. There's a lot more storefronts to choose from. One of the biggest players is the Kobo store. There's kind of a massive multinational company called Rakuten. I think they're either Japanese or South Korean, I can't remember, but they own what is essentially the biggest ebook platform for the rest of the world. But then the rest of the world, a lot of countries have their own independent electronic platforms. All the European countries, it's 20 or 30 different storefronts I have to get our books onto. And we sell on all of them, but it sometimes is fun trying to keep track of everything for the rest of the world. So I hope that answers the question.
Great. Yes.
Other questions?
Okay.
Another question? Before we go close, anyone online have a question? Oh, I think we lost everyone online.
I want to ask you, Prof. So this is just easy, I think, to Professor Knox. Can you publish your own academic works at real-time publishing? Won't there be issues of conflict of interest and stuff like that?
So we don't publish my works for that reason. I'm the one in charge of peer review, and so it certainly couldn't be a blind peer review. And even if we did, if we had someone else in the company handle the peer review from the outside, it would have an appearance of conflict of interest. We published, the very first thing we published was an article of mine. We published it as an example because in 2011, people didn't know what they were going to look like. I think Michael, have we pulled that out of circulation, or is that still available?
It's still available,
Okay.
but it costs no money. It doesn't.
Oh, that's right, we made it free. Yes. Yeah.
It's actually we make no money off of it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely free. Like you said, it was just an example title. We don't even list it on the website because it's just essentially an internal example of a book. That's all.
Yeah, so we did one of my articles as a sample. And so also, I would also say, by the way, if you decide, well, we're going to set up our own journal, whoever's the editor-in-chief of that journal is not publishing in that journal. Now, that being said, being editor-in-chief of a journal is in most scholarly contexts considered prestigious. So normally you'd want someone who is, I don't know what's happening outside. Sounds like a parade's happening outside here. I don't know if you can hear all that honking. You do have to keep that in mind, right? You're not going to be publishing. But that's not actually particularly digital publishing. That would be if you had a print journal. I also should point out, in addition to if you want to go online and buy one of our books, to see what it looks like, you can do that. I'm not here to sell you our books. And so if you do and you're like, hey, I want to buy your book, I'll give you $3 so that it doesn't cost you anything to have bought the book. Did you hear that, Michael?
I did. Now, here's the thing. Now, if there's anybody there in attendance who wants to see the book, you don't have to give the money. We can just give a free copy of the book. I can send it directly.
Okay, yeah, if you want a copy of one of our books, Michael can send you a free e-copy of the book. Also, some years after we created Witam Publishing, Amazon created a print-on-demand model that could then print into cardboard and paper, something that we'd already digitally published. And so basically, I did bring for you many copies of those, which are now cataloged in your library, so you can see those. Now, those are print on demand through Amazon. Probably not something that Amazon doesn't work well in Uganda, so probably not the option you'd want to go with. But it does start off with those do start off as digital books. Okay, we have any other questions? Oh, I think the head department. Did you want to say something? That sounds like she does. Okay. One moment more.
Once again,
Do you want to come up here?
the question re-answered is just because the audio call.
One second.
Thank you very much, Dr. Michael, plus Jamie. This has been, and this is really a great, these are great activities that we are doing here at Kyambogo with the Professor's Court. This is, it helps us because here at Kyambogo University and even in other universities here in Uganda, to achieve a step forward, like you have been a lecturer, to become a senior lecturer or to become a professor, you have to publish. And these are gateways for us. These are really gateways for us. Michael, you have done us well, you have done us good. And Professor, thank you very much for this. It will take us far into our publishing ventures here in Uganda, especially here at Kyambogo University. Lecturers publish and students at PhD, they have to publish about 2 articles before they graduate. These are venues for us all. Thank you very much. It has been really very good and educative and helpful to us all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. Michael, thank you for coming and joining us today. And if you're watching this online, we might get it out before we do one that's for the general public also. And we had Michael's contact if you want to contact Witten Publishing is on there. Also, mine is RSNOKES and Witten Publishing also. But if you just send it to somewhere at Witten Publishing, it'll get to us one way or the other. All right, thank you all so very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good pleasure. Thank you.